All right, so GRC. It's not the most exciting acronym, is it?
Not really, no, but it is important.
It is, yeah. It's kind of like I guess you could say the boring but crucial stuff, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like eating your vegetables, you don't always like it, but you know it's good for you.
it's the stuff that keeps companies running smoothly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Governance, risk, and compliance. GRC.
GRC. And today we're going to dive deep into one of the, I guess you could say, the most popular frameworks out there, the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, or NIST CSF for short.
Yep, the NIST CSF. It's a great framework, very widely used.
Yeah, and we're going to kind of put ourselves in the shoes of cybersecurity consultants for a day.
All right, sounds fun.
Yeah. So our homework, so to speak, is to help this small healthcare company, fictional of course,
Yeah.
figure out how to keep their patient data safe using the NIST CSF.
And that's a real challenge in healthcare, isn't it? I mean, you've
No.
got this balance between, making sure that the data is accessible to the people who need it,
Hmm?
but also keeping it safe from, well, everyone else.
Yeah, it's a tightrope walk for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so the NIST CSF, it gives us 5 core functions to work with: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover.
And it's a cycle. That's the important thing to remember. It's not just like a checklist where you just go through it once and you're done. You have to keep going back, reassessing,
Okay, so
and adjusting your defenses.
let's start with identify. Put on our detective hats here.
Mhm.
What are the things that this healthcare company really needs to protect? Like, what keeps them up at night? You know.
Well, first and foremost, you have to think about HIPAA, right?
Right.
So patient health information. Anything that falls under HIPAA is a huge liability, and the fines can be enormous if there's a breach.
So where does that data live?
Well, you've got the electronic health records, of course, the EHRs.
Okay.
That's kind of the obvious one.
Right.
But then you've got, billing systems. Anything with financial data is also a big target.
Yeah.
Credit
Mhm.
card numbers, social security numbers, all that juicy stuff.
Yeah, hackers love that stuff. So it's not just about the data itself. It's about the systems that hold the data.
Exactly. You've got to look at the network, the servers, the workstations, even the mobile devices that employees are using to access these systems.
It feels like it's almost impossible to protect everything.
Well, it is a challenge, but that's why we have the protect function. So how do we actually, build up those defenses?
Yeah, how do we build those walls high enough, but, without making it so that no one can get in?
Right, right. So you start with the basics, like firewalls. But we're not talking about, your dad's old firewall from 1998. We're talking next generation firewalls that can analyze traffic, look for patterns,
Wow.
and actually block malicious activity before it even hits your network.
So they're like super smart firewalls.
Exactly. And then you have access controls. So who has access to what? And how do you make sure that only the right people are getting in?
Right, like I don't need access to the billing system if I'm a doctor.
Right. Exactly. So you have different roles, different levels of access, and you can really granularly control who can see what.
So it's like different keys for different doors.
Exactly.
Okay, and I guess passwords and all that stuff fall under this too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, making people jump through a few extra hoops to prove they are who they say they are.
Right. Got to make it tough for those bad guys. Okay, so we've got our walls, our super smart firewalls, our fancy keys, but let's be real, someone's going to try to break in eventually, right?
Oh, yeah. They're always trying. So that's where detect comes in. You've got to have systems in place to know when something fishy is going on.
Like a security alarm, but for your computer network.
Exactly. So you've got intrusion detection systems, IDS, that are constantly monitoring your network traffic. And if they see something that doesn't look right, boom, they send out an alert.
An alert to who? Like who's watching these alarms?
Well, that's where the security team comes in. And they're using tools like SIEMs, security information, and event management systems,
Okay.
which basically take all the data from your different security tools and put it in one place so you can see the big picture.
All right, so now the alarm bells are ringing, someone's trying to get in.
Hmm.
What do we do?
That's respond. And this is where things can get really interesting or really scary, depending on how you look at it.
So we're like first responders now.
Yeah, kind of. First thing you got to do is contain the damage, isolate the affected system so the attacker can't spread.
Okay.
And then you got to figure out what happened, gather evidence, analyze the attack, do a little forensic investigation.
SSI. Cyber.
Exactly. And then you got to fix the problem, of course. Patch the vulnerability, update your systems, whatever it takes to make sure it doesn't happen again.
It's sometimes called the cops, right?
Yeah, sometimes you got to involve law enforcement, especially if there's been a major data breach.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So I imagine having a plan in place beforehand is pretty crucial.
Oh, absolutely. You don't want to be figuring this stuff out on the fly when you're under attack.
Okay, so we fought off the bad guys, we've patched up the holes, now what? How do we get back to normal?
That's recover, the
Yeah.
final function. And it's all about getting your systems back up and running as quickly and smoothly as possible.
So this is where backups come in, right?
Backups are your best friend in this situation. You should be regularly backing up all your critical data, storing it offsite, and testing those backups to make sure they actually work.
So just like we back up our phones, but for like the whole company.
Exactly. But it's not just about restoring the data. You also have to think about restoring your systems and your applications.
So we've gone from playing detective to building a fortress, sounding the alarm, putting out fires, and finally rebuilding what was lost. That's the whole NIST CSF cycle.
It is. And the thing is, it's not a one-time thing. You've got to keep doing it, keep improving, keep adapting.
Yeah, and that's something that everyone can take away from this, even if you're not running a healthcare company. These principles apply to our personal lives too.
Absolutely. Think about your passwords. Are they strong? Are they unique? Do you have two-factor authentication set up on your important accounts?
Good point. And what about our privacy settings on social media? Have you
Yeah.
checked those lately?
That's a big one. You know, think about what information you're sharing online and who you're sharing it with.
So the NIST CSF, it's not just for big companies. It's a way of thinking about cybersecurity that can help everyone.
And it starts with being aware. The more you understand the threats, the better you can protect yourself.
Well said. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've really dug deep into the NIST CSF and hopefully given everyone some food for thought.
Yeah. Food for thought and maybe a little bit of motivation to go check those privacy settings.
Yeah, definitely. All right, that's it for our deep dive today. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me.